again, what we're doing is we're picking back up with the history portion of this class, and we're kind of getting away from the government. Get there. I'll say just a minute. Hurry up. All right, guys, if you need to move, sharpen your pencils, do it now, please, so we can start. This word, let's think about what this means. And again, everything that I want you to write today is going to be in red. The word inauguration. What does it mean? Think about what this word means. What does it mean? Brianna, what does it mean? Okay, when you get appointed. All right, Anna?
Like put into a position, like before you do, you have to.
Okay, put into a position. Good. If you remember when y'all did that Constitution scavenger hunt, I had you, one of the questions was find the president's oath that he has to say before he can be president. That happens at something called the inauguration. So when we get a new president, he has to first say this oath, and y'all actually wrote it down, but I'll show it to you in a minute. And then they have to be sworn in, pretty much is what it is, okay? So, we've never had a president at this point in time. Who is our first president? George Washington. Woo! George Washington, okay? Our country, at this point, it is a fairly new country. We're kind of a baby. America is a baby. We've never had a president, and we have a lot of problems that we still have to deal with that we've never really taken care of. This is a painting of George Washington's inaugural address. So at the inauguration, what happens is they have to say the oath, they get sworn in, and they usually give a speech. So in this painting, and this is again a painting, not a picture, they didn't have cameras. This guy, and I know it's hard to see, this guy right here, this is George Washington. He has his hand on his heart, and then he's got his other hand on this book. What book do y'all think that might be? Rose?
The Bible.
Might be the Bible, okay? Because he's saying an oath. He's promising that he's telling the truth, and the whole thing, all right? And I know you can't see it, but over here in the background, it's all these people, like, hanging out the windows. This was a very, very, very impactful event in American history because he is our first president. We've never had this happen before, okay? This is the oath that the president has to say before he can be president. And this is what y'all wrote down, but you don't have to write it down now. Here is the oath. It says, I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. George Washington was the first president to say this. He actually came up with it. But every president since him has also said this same oath. What is the president in this oath? What is he promising to do for our country? Dante?
To not make it like it was at first. To not. I don't know.
All right. What is he promising to do, Anna?
To make sure that everybody has equal rights and everything and protected and defended.
And how is he going to make sure that everybody has equal rights and that we're defended?
By protecting.
By using what?
The army?
The army. What's he going to use to make sure that you have your rights, that you're protected? What's he going to use, Logan?
His people.
Not his people. Madison? But where does he get his power? The people, kinda. Kaya? Not its ability. The Constitution, okay? Guys, he's saying right here that he will preserve, protect, and defend us using this document. You will get your rights because of those Bill of Rights. We promise as a government to do these things for you. That's the preamble. So he's saying that he's going to follow the Constitution, he's not going to break the law, and that he's going to protect us as citizens. Now, with all of that being said, all of those things that he's promising to do, what kind of jobs, or what are some responsibilities of the president? What are some responsibilities of the president? Belay, what are some of his responsibilities?
To do the best for the people.
Pick your head up. Pick your head up. People who have your head down, pick them up now. Edward, pick your head up. Say that again, I'm sorry. To do what's best for the people. Alright, what else, Madison? Some of them, if he thinks to the best of his ability, right? Dante? Edward, pick your head up.
He's the general of the army.
He is the general of the army. Equal rights. Say it again. He has to attend all the meetings, right? Rose?
Be able to see all the problems.
See all the problems. Hold on to that thought. No? Yes? Yes? Okay, let.
To protect and defend his country.
To protect and defend his country, most definitely, Alex.
To listen to everybody's thoughts.
To listen,
Be able to problem.
problem solve, to be the president, to be a leader. Good. He's responsible for treaties. Last one, Braylon.
To try and help America out as much as he can.
Good, to try to help America out. Now, this job, all of those things that y'all just told me, do you think that's an easy job?
No.
No. Okay. The president, no matter what he does, and this is especially true in 2019, whether it's good or bad, he is going to be criticized. Okay? If he ends world hunger, they're still going to criticize him. Because he is the president, he is the leader of our country, he is taking sole responsibility for everything that goes good and bad in our country, right? We're in debt, who do we blame? The president. We're in a war, who do we blame? The president. Our government shut down, who do we blame? The president. Well, it actually is his fault. But we always blame the president. Yes, ma'am.
What happens if someone follows
Guys, someone has a question. Second.
What happens if something doesn't follow them?
He will be impeached. If he violates the Constitution, if he does something that is a bad character, he can be impeached, right? Who impeaches the president?
Congress.
Congress. Thank you, Congress. Question?
So you don't even have to vote if he doesn't follow the Constitution, he's automatically impeached.
They have to vote to impeach. Congress does. Logan, you're next.
Can he be real? Like,
Can he be shot? Yeah.
no, I mean like, for like, yeah, execute, like,
Can, like, the people?
Because like, he did something bad.
I mean, they can, but they will go to jail for very, 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 they'll never get out of jail.
So I mean like, if he did
By law, can they? No. Right?
I thought there was no more execution.
There are in some states.
Does that mean some of the, government won't get paid?
Yes. Yes. People are, they've gone like a whole month without a paycheck. So for those people who like they live paycheck to paycheck, like they're hurting. They're hungry, they're free. Yes, ma'am.
I know this is like most likely never gonna happen. But what if like everybody in America, even though this is it's not gonna happen. But like if there are candidates to be president and nobody like wants to vote, what would they do? Like hypothetically?
Automatically.
Like we're about to either like other candidates. If there are gonna be more than one candidate, so what would happen if
Is there a vote?
one
Like no one votes?
Yeah, I know it's not like gonna happen, but like
Well, technically, it's up to the electoral college. So they just decide. Yes, ma'am. Last question. We gotta move on.
What if the president impeached?
He can be impeached. If he does things that are outside of his reach, because of that thing called checks and balances, one of the things that the other branches can do to check him is actually impeachment. All right, guys, moving on. So, being the president is very hard. Moral of the story. What I want you to do is I want you to label the next page on your notebook, Problems for Washington. Okay, Problems for Washington. Label it Problems for Washington. So at this time, when Washington becomes president, we are still a very, very young country. There's a lot of things that we haven't quite figured out what to do, how to do it. We have that new plan of government called the Constitution. But there's a lot of things that the Constitution didn't decide for us, right? So Washington, we all know that he's our first president. He has a lot of problems that he has to deal with. And that's what we're going to look at today. The first problem that Washington is going to have to deal with as a president. Oh, and before I get into this, George Washington, fun fact, he did not run for president. Everybody in the legislative branch, Congress, they unanimously, which means everyone agreed, they elected him. Every single person in Congress at that time, and I don't know how many it was, they all agreed that George Washington should be president because of the leadership that he had during the American Revolution. Okay? So, he is our first president. He did not run against anybody. They just said, hey, we want you to be president, and he said, okay. Yes, ma'am.
So he didn't like come out and like.
I want to be president.
Yeah. So they just told him you gotta do this.
We want you to be president. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
At that point in time, like, was it still you only had like a 4-year status or something?
Well, he actually started that tradition of only 4 years. We're going to talk about that next. Yes. I don't know. Somebody else could have gotten it, I guess. Alright, so his first problem that he is going to have to deal with, and this is in red, so I want you to write it. So problem number 1. Here's the problem. We have this new plan of government called the Constitution. Under this new plan of government, it gives the federal government a whole lot of power. If you think back to the plan that we had before the Constitution, did the federal government have a lot of power? No, it didn't. The states kind of decided everything for themselves. But now we have the Constitution, and it is very strict. It lays everything out, who can do what. But not only that, before we were America, we were the colonies, and we actually decided as a country that we didn't want to have a king anymore. We didn't want one person in charge. But now under this new document, we're going to say we're going to have a president, and that's one person in charge. So a lot of citizens in America at this time, they are very, very worried that this new plan of government is not going to work. Okay. So that is problem number 1. Yes, sir.
But he's not really by himself because he has the legislative branch and all the branches
Right.
he has to agree with and disagree with.
Right. But they're just worried that he's going to start abusing that power like that king had done, right? Even if it is in the Constitution.
Could they not impeach him back then?
Yeah, you can.
They can.
So what I want you to do is I want you, and this is like in your own brain, don't say anything. I want you to think about this brainstorm. What might happen, and I don't like that question, what might happen because the federal government has a lot of power? What might happen? Just think in your brain. What might happen? What might happen? We now have a president. The federal government has a lot of power. The states aren't used to the federal government having a lot of power. What might happen? We're just brainstorming. All right, share with your table what you think might happen. Go. What might
So they, I think, why did you sound like that?
Do y'all think the guy is
I think it does.
Well, a lot of this is like,
Oh, yeah, she kind of like Tuesday with the voice like she don't sound like Michael Jackson.
alright, table 3, tell me what you think might happen because the federal government has a lot of power. What might happen?
They're scared that the federal government might, that they might abuse their powers, so the states might abuse theirs and try to override them.
Okay, the states might try to override them.
They said that history will repeat itself, like because like boycotting,
Okay, history might repeat itself. Hold on to that thought. Yes, ma'am. Tyranny could happen, technically. Yes, ma'am.
Like protests.
Protest. All right, Dante.
I think some people may be confused about the powers of the government.
Okay, some people might be confused. All right, problem number 2. Remember that war that we fought for our independence, it cost a lot of money. And now we are still, not today, but when he became president, our country was still in debt. And debt is spelled D-E-B-T, not D-E-P-T. We were in debt. The reason that we were still in debt is because that first plan of government that we had didn't let the federal government tax the people. So we had no way, or they had no way, of getting taxes. But the problem that Washington's going to have to decide is, well, we know people don't like being taxed. We are in debt, so what are we going to do about it?
That's why people get taxed.
No, and you'll figure out why tomorrow. He said, well, if we're in debt, why can't we just print money? You'll figure out that tomorrow. Yes, sir. If you've paid in enough. Okay, so, good question. Taxes. Every month when I get my paycheck, the state of Louisiana and the federal government take taxes out of my paycheck. According to how much you make, everybody's different, you have to pay in a certain number of taxes, right? If you paid in whatever that amount is, when you do your taxes, you fill out all this stuff and it's real boring. But if you paid in more than you should have, you'll receive a tax return. So you get a check for like, you paid too much, here's your money back, that kind of thing. That's what it is.
Are we still like paying for that?
No, we are in a whole different set of debt now. Yes, ma'am.
Is that what income tax is?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. All right, so what are we going to do about this debt? Real quick, let's just brainstorm. What do you think might happen, or what might be a plan to start paying back this debt? George Washington says, I think we should do this. Madison?
Maybe like not make the taxes as high that the king did. Maybe a reasonable price.
Okay, maybe reasonable taxes.
Maybe like once a time.
Okay. Dante?
I think he gonna do what we doing today in this.
Okay, maybe set up something like we have today in 2019. Yes, sir?
Maybe in like
Say it again.
maybe like set up like stuff like to just like help people like help people get them to help this cause.
Okay, maybe kind of like a fundraiser almost. All right. Those are all very good guesses. All right. So we are at that time. George Washington's got to figure out how are we going to pay back our debt. Problem number 3. He's got to deal with this. Previously, friends with or allies with, and who we weren't. We didn't have to decide who we were going to trade with, who we were going to borrow money from, or who we were going to be enemies with. George Washington's got to figure out, well, who are we going to become friends with?
Oh, sorry. Like, if you want to become friends with, like, China and stuff, like, how does China know that we're in each other?
Some people do.
Like, at this time?
No, not this time. We don't have any contact with China this time. They went through China went through a period where they didn't want to deal with any of them. They closed themselves off to the world. Alright, so we just fought a war against Great Britain for our independence. Do you think we're going to be allies with Great Britain?
No.
Maybe not. We might.
Yeah.
We might not want to start any more wars.
They would have said, hey.
We might want to trade with them. But we've also got to figure out, well, do we want to be allies or friends with France? Because remember, during that war, France was the one that helped us out. They sent us money, they sent us supplies. The problem is, France and Great Britain hate each other. So we've got to figure out whose side are we going to take. Are we going to be friends with Great Britain? Or are we going to be friends with France?
You're the one.
Anybody still writing this? Okay, go ahead. Alright, problem number 4. There are 5 totals, you're almost done. Problem number 4. Y'all kept asking about the Indians. Well, we're back to the Indians now. Washington's going to have to figure out what are we going to do with them. We've talked about land a lot, and that, land equals money, and money equals power. So America, and this is still true today, wants as much land as it can get. At this time, our America did not look like it does today, right? We didn't have all the land that we have today. We just had a very small portion of that land. When we got here, when those colonists got here, remember they pushed those Indians off that land and said, well, just go that way for a little while because we need this land. Now that we are our own country and we have a leader, the area or the land that we had pushed those Native Americans onto, the people in America start saying, well, I think we might actually want that area for ourselves. So George Washington's got to figure out, what are we going to do with those Native Americans? How are we going to do this? Originally this was, America, right? We pushed the Indians right here to the top of it, or to the west, right? But now we start looking at this area and we start saying, we might actually be able to do something with this. So we're going to start wanting this land. What do you think is going to happen, Madison?
Maybe, when they use it, maybe they could share it and then it would be
Maybe share it. Logan?
a war.
Maybe a war. Okay. Okay. Alex?
I think that the Americans, they're gonna kill the Indians.
They might kill the Indians. Okay.
They might move them farther.
They might keep moving them west. Gabrielle?
Why couldn't the Indians just be with the people like they are now?
That is a good question. That's a very valid question. Because the people in America at this time thought of the Indians as savages, is like wild people who were not evolved. Yeah, it's crazy. Now that we think about it today in 2019, it's just like, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Can I disagree with something crazy?
Sure.
Well, I don't think that they're gonna kill all the Indians because didn't Pocahontas help some of the explorers with something?
A very long time ago, technically, yes.
Okay, so then they didn't kill them all.
Can I disagree with Brianna?
Okay, go
They
ahead.
didn't kill them all.
But there's no point if they're just gonna like push them back and back and back. You just like end the problem there so they can take all the land that they would go on.
I know. I'm just saying, I don't think that's gonna happen.
Maybe not kill them on purpose.
Yeah.
Kill them on accident.
You'll see. You'll see. Okay, last one, and then and I'll come back to your questions. Okay, I promise. All right, last one, and then we'll come back. The last thing that Washington is worried about, because remember, George Washington, everybody said, yeah, let's make him president. He'll be a great leader. What he's worried about is something called political parties. What we have today. He said that political parties, if you let your country pretty much take sides against each other, that it would be the death of that country, right? If you let two groups of people argue against each other, you're splitting our country in half. And no one's ever going to get along. Now, fast forward to 2019, and look at us now, you're right. And our country has literally shut down the federal government because our two political parties cannot come to an agreement. That is currently what's happening, okay? So was George Washington's problem, was this concern a real concern? Yeah. Okay, I'm sure he's like rolling over in his grave right now, saying, I told you. Rose?
Why did they pick a donkey and an elephant?
I don't know. That's a good question. Look it up. Yes.
What was George Washington buried?
Was he buried? Yeah.
What was he buried?
Oh, buried in Virginia.
So he was technically a Republican because before he was like,
He was not part of any political party.
because somebody, I forgot who told me
He had
that
a wig on.
we learned that,
There were none then.
yeah, we learned that Republicans, like Democrats came from.
Yes. And you're going to take a quiz to see what we do. Yes, sir. Once you finish writing this, y'all, you can pack up. Yes. And so
Got too much